Well, good evening to you. Welcome to Panoramic Perspectives. Now, normally we have Elise, where she and I are co-hosts, Elise Gianmarco Carlson, but she's been replaced. Now we have a more or less permanent fixture here. Well, we'll introduce you in just a minute.
She was the much better looking one.
People will say that, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, Elise couldn't make it tonight, so we wish her well, and she's hopefully watching some of the show and all that. Well, my name is Carl Johnson. I'm going to introduce our guest, but I really don't have to. You're emblazoned up there. Yeah.
The there.
Well, let me just tell a little bit about what's going on here. What will be on October 16th. That's going to be Pawtucket, Rhode Island, Pawtucket Public Library. Elise and I are going to be giving a talk as Panorama Paranormal and talking about the rudiments of ghost hunting and what to believe and maybe what to make up your own mind about. So that's going to be at 3 p.m. It's not going to be an evening one. And we'll do this in reverse. So October 29th, 30th, and October 1st, there will be, you'd have to go to New Orleans for this, not in our backyard. There is going to be Fear Fest, and Howard Petrie is the organizer, for the central organizer. And there are going to be a lot of interesting people there. You'll know some of them. And I'm going to be speaking there. So those are some things that are going on. Oh, well, there's something before that. Ocean State Paracon.
Ocean State Paracon, yes.
That is, I like them all, but that is the one I really look forward to, Ocean State Paracon. It's being returned to the Assembly Theater in Burrillville, Harrisville, Rhode Island. And, well, where some strange things have happened. And look at this stellar lineup there. Oh, yeah, the twins there.
Yeah, it's always a fantastic event. I've really enjoyed it the couple times that I've been there for Ocean State. So
yeah, Mike has another commitment, so he can't be there. I wish he would be. Yeah, Panorama Paranormal will be there. Yes, we'll have our own table. Well, also something I should say, I do owe an apology to a friend and colleague of mine, friend for many years. My sense of humor can be a little offbeat, and I do kind of the Andy Kaufman thing. If I think it's funny, then it's got to be funny to other people, And I was ribbing Tom, maybe a little too much. I didn't mean to say it. I don't know if anybody misunderstood, but Tom and Arlene have a stellar relationship. They've been together for so long now, and they're the ideal couple. They look good together. They just work good together. They are good together, So hopefully no offense was taken, but a lot of what I was saying was in jest, but I tend to do that with a serious face. So don't always take me seriously. Yeah. But you can take me seriously for this. We have Mr. Mike Ricksecker. He is a journalist. He is a television personality. He's a world traveler, and he does a lot of things. And he has his own show and podcast. I think above all that, I appreciate that he's a writer. And we're going to be talking about his latest book. I'm going to give the title.
Go right ahead.
Travels Through Time. Now, some people, here we go. Right on cue. Some people believe that if there's a time barrier, that it can be penetrated or transcended. Some people, intentionally or otherwise, and perhaps some people manipulate certain frequencies that a person or an object can travel through time. Now, that's not possible. We think in linear terms. We don't think of we always worry about tomorrow. We regret the past or laugh about the past. But some people think you can jump around in that. Time is a strange concept. And when Albert Einstein came along with his theorizing, our concepts of time became rather distorted because time became known as relative. So, Mike.
Yes.
I haven't had a chance to read your book. I'm going to get a copy tonight.
You are, because I have copies down in my car.
Should have brought one so I could.
Should have brought one right up here. Yeah.
But I know the basic premise of it. I have read a little bit of it and all that. Can anybody
right into it?
Yeah. Can anybody just travel through time? I mean, I can't, except that I'm going at a nice, slow, normal pace as I'm aging. We think in times, we know there's this concept of time. We rely on it. However, if everything got blown away out of the universe, which is supposed to be what with universal attrition, it's going to become nothing after a while. If the universe just dissipates and goes away, universal entropy is the rule, and the last particle of a star becomes dust, and that cools. And then there's essentially nothing. But space is something. If you get space, you've got time. But if everything's gone and you have nothing, there's no time. Or even if you have this empty void, there's no time. It just, I can't wrap my mind around it. Is there any practical application for this? You tell me what you think.
Time doesn't exist. Time doesn't exist.
Did you hear this?
It's a human concept. Yeah.
We got it here.
We're having a conversation. I gotta remember to look at the camera here because the audience.
Yeah, we're having fun. Well, we were talking over dinner.
We were
about everything but this.
Yeah, sure enough. But yeah, time doesn't exist. It's a human construct. It's a tool that we've developed to describe our reality and help keep track of our existence. So, keep track of the seasons, when to plant the crops on time, when to get to our job at the right moment so our supervisors don't get upset. It's something that we have developed, again, to use as a tool. But time itself, what we think of is really in the fourth dimension. And like you were saying, we generally think of it in a linear fashion, as like a river. That's what we always, the analogy that we use, river of time. But it's not the water of the river, the time, that's making it flow. It's the banks that's keeping the water in there to make it flow. Now, the question is, what are the banks keeping it in there? If you were to remove those banks, all the water, all time would spill out and would be stagnant, would be ever present, like in a large lake or what have you, if we're going with that analogy. Another way to look at it is when you're driving through a town, like when we were driving from Cello's over to here, right? We passed a number of different buildings, stores, supermarkets,
all
gas
very
stations,
normal.
yeah, all that sort of stuff. And it took us like maybe 10 minutes to get from there to here. Okay, that's
traffic was light enough.
Right. But if we were in a helicopter or in an airplane over this area, we would see it all at once. And everything that was once in time to us is now in space because it's all there at once. And so what travels through time does is it breaks that down. Our good friend, Mr. Einstein, that we were just talking about, had some similar concepts because I came up with this theory in my own head about 20 years ago that all time was concurrent, past, present, future, all working at the same time. Like a
continuum without motion.
Right. And so I likened it to each moment that, like, take where we're sitting right now. Every moment that has happened, is happening, and will happen are all stacked up on top of each other like a stack of photographs. And sometimes two of those moments, because everything's resonance, energy, vibration, two of those moments will resonate at the same frequency for a moment, and we'll get a glimpse of another moment in time. So some of these time slips that we hear about, or sometimes what we might think is a ghost or an apparition, but they look at us like we're the ghost. That's really a time slip, and two of those moments resonate at the same moment because they're happening at the same time.
An analogy I've used is like a record, like the old LPs, vinyl discs. It's playing music, and the stylus is traveling, but that music is potential music even when it's not being unleashed, even when it's not being played.
Right.
And you can see that whole record. You can see the beginning of the record play, and you can see the end of it.
Yeah, no, that's a great analogy because one of the chapters I have in the book is on the simulated universe. And so in today's day and age, we liken that to a computer simulation because that's our most advanced technology that we have right now. It's probably something else, probably something more organic, biological, what have you. But if we are going off of that premise that it's a simulation, and a lot of our ancient cultures talk about it, they just don't use the word simulation. Everything's there. You take a look at it, from a computer program. Okay, when you log into the computer right now, log into a video game or whatever, all the information's there. It's just we're accessing it, again, in a linear sort of fashion. But if we knew how to bend and break the rules of the program or that little universe, we could get to whatever location we wanted to within the program.
And do so consistently with the rhythm. So you can go where you want, not just be propelled or, cast off into some other time.
Right. No, I think that, when it comes to, and you're starting to say it there at the very beginning, real time travel, what is it? I don't think it's going to be DeLorean in a flux capacitor. I don't think it's going to be a machine. I think it's going to have more to do with our consciousness, more to do with ourselves, and the ability to be able to tune into a certain moment, a certain frequency consciously, and basically will ourselves to another moment in time to be able to experience it.
Was that movie? Not Moments of Time. What was
Somewhere
it?
in
Somewhere in
Time.
Time.
I
Somewhere in
referenced
Time
that
with Christopher
movie.
Reeve.
Jane Seymour. Yeah,
Yes,
I referenced that movie a lot.
What a wonderful cast. It's a heartbreaker. They throw a dram of speculative science in it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
That way you can believe that, and that was the key, that he had to believe.
He had to believe. Yeah, he cleared out like all the modern accoutrements out of his hotel room. He dressed in the vintage suit. Got some money.
Yeah, they were having kind of fun with him. Saying, yeah, that suit's about 10 years.
Yeah, it's about 10 years old.
Yeah.
But he believed. Yes. But he believed it was from that era, even though they were like, it's 10 years old. He believed, and that was the key. Was that he believed where he was in time, so he was able to project his consciousness to that moment to be able to experience it.
Has anybody ever done that, do you think, in your opinion?
I think it's happened. I don't know if it's really how controllable it can be, but I think that's how real-time travel happens.
With a belief in it, or do they just happen to be in the right place? And something
and that's the thing. How do we tune our frequency into that moment? Because it always seems to be like an accident. Like some of these doppelganger stories that you hear out there, or somebody sees themselves, they're actually in many cases tuning into themselves from another moment in time, like the famous poet Goethe. He's, just tell the story real quick here. He's walking down the street to Dressenheim. He's having an affair with a young woman. He's kind of lost in his thoughts, thinking about the situation, kind of what we would call today like zoning out, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, on the other side of the road, he notices this man in a gold-trimmed gray suit, and all of a sudden disappears. Like, what the heck was that? What was going on there? And just kind of, it was all right, fine. That was kind of weird, and kept going. A couple of years later, he's walking down that same road in the opposite direction. He comes across that spot where he had seen this strange man, looks down at himself, and he's like, oh my God, I was the man in the gold-trimmed gray suit. I saw myself. And so what I think happened there in that moment is because, when you get lost in your thoughts like that, when you zone out, like when we're driving down the road and we miss our turn because we're lost in thought.
Twice, 3 times a week with me.
You're right. It's a type of meditative state that you enter into. So I think he'd gotten himself into this meditative state.
Philadelphia experiment.
There we go. That he got himself into this meditative state, and he could tune into his own frequency, recognize his own frequency, and saw himself there for a moment. So it wasn't really a quote unquote doppelganger. It was himself.
An image of him, yet it was him.
It was him.
But other people weren't aware of that figure. They probably didn't see him because it was the man's own frequency.
Right.
Does quantum entanglement imply that all of physical reality is doubled, like a duplicate universe or a duplicate world?
Quantum entanglement is being able to you have one particle on this side of the cosmos and the other particle, and basically instead of sending a signal, once a change happens, it happens
instantaneously there
because they're still connected.
Yeah. So if one of those particles, be they separated by a micrometer, be they separated by a galaxy, and I've heard that analogy. I've heard it. It wouldn't reach that far. The distance becomes irrelevant. One of them vibrates with a certain pattern. The other one will, at the same time, do the same thing. It will vibrate the same way. That doesn't make sense. That is not logical. A lot of quantum speculation is not logical.
Spooky action at a distance.
Yeah, spooky action. That's an actual term.
It is. Our friend Einstein again.
Yes, Einstein seemed to be right on it, but he did not like quantum.
He butted heads with those guys, but
but they work together.
But they do. It's all related. They're all connected to each other, and I think in a lot of ways you can make these things work together. Go ahead. It seems like you're about to.
I think there's a quantum principle operating inside our minds. That we are a holographic mind with quantum principles applied, quantum physics, if you will. I have dreams and then they happen.
Right.
This used to be more regular with me, but I was working at a dental clinic, and I dreamt about a small terrier dog with black and white, with white on his back. Next day, the woman comes in, presents at the dentist where I'm working. She's got that dog that I dreamt of, and that's just one of countless examples. Maybe it's more fluid when it applies to the mind, because I dreamt that, and
Right.
I didn't see a dog outside of my dream. Then I saw that same dog the next day. So this implies that there's something more plastic about the human mind, more fluid.
Right. There's ways that you're connecting to other moments, and really, when we have a premonitory dream like that,
Yes.
It is a type of time travel, because we are getting a glimpse of it. We are tuning into that particular moment. I've had that happen, many times before. So, are we actually going, traveling to that moment? And somebody's got their phone on.
Oh yes, it's somebody I know too.
Are we going to that moment and actually living it? I'm not so sure about that, but are we able to go to that moment and observe it? I think that's at least happening in those moments of dreams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now somebody mentioned, what have we got here? The pineal gland.
Yeah.
Yeah. How valid is that? I know it's incorporated into mysticism,
right,
and tantric yoga, and the Kundalini, and they all talk about the third eye,
right,
which people don't know if there's much function for the pineal gland except to just be there, and maybe it's a gateway to another reality.
Yeah, that idea that if our consciousness is being projected to our bodies, that perhaps that's the radio receptor for it. That's certainly plausible. And of course, when we talk about things like ayahuasca and these kind of hallucinatory experiences that people have, the pineal gland is extremely activated during those moments. And people talk about talking with other beings and having these experiences, which is really, really interesting. So outside of kind of those anecdotal stories of, hey, I experienced this, that, or the other thing, it would be nice to see some actual let's put it in a lab,
right,
line everybody
and
up
and analyze
and analyze what's going on, right?
And I've wondered if maybe Dr. John Dee and his associate Edward Kelly, when they were invoking angels and spirit beings, through crystals and trapezohedrons, were they really getting something? Maybe it wasn't so much their malarkey or falderall. Maybe it wasn't their imagination. Maybe they were really invoking something because they believed they were doing it. They believed they could.
Yeah, they could have been accessing, if not other, if they weren't accessing or communicating with angels, it could have been intelligent beings from another dimension. It could have been other points in time. And how would they know the difference? Their context frame of reference at the time was, more of a religious nature. So that's what they would relate.
Well, that was the climate then in England.
Yeah.
The church, the church was all powerful. That was from Android Paranormal. He says, does Mike's research indicate the pineal gland might be involved in consciousness time travel? Well, that's just it. Consciousness time travel.
Yeah.
Probably easier than transporting a whole body.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of the interesting thing here too, is when we're talking about this form of time travel, because I've had that question thrown at me. Okay, would the body physically move along with you? And I don't necessarily think so. And of course, it would be interesting, the trials and the experiments and that sort of thing, because our consciousness, we're multidimensional beings. Our consciousness resides in the fourth dimension, but it's in a third dimensional body.
Solid.
Yeah. So if we're projecting our consciousness to another point in time, I don't know if the 3D body is going to go, to that other moment.
Well, that segues into our next comment or question. Sarah Yosef asks, can time travel experience be controlled through astral travel or remote viewing?
Yeah.
It seems like they might be related.
Yeah, I think it can. You can astral travel and project in our moment of time. People have reported doing that for years and years and years. But to project to another point in time, I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about here.
Yes.
It would be, consciously elevating yourself to the fifth dimension, because the fifth dimension is beyond time. That's an area where you can view all moments. Pick your point where you are.
That's like that overhead, the helicopter view.
Yeah, like the helicopter view, or a great example. I don't know if you've seen it, the movie Interstellar. He enters into what we call a tesseract. Now, a lot of models of a tesseract these days are basically a cube on top of the cube, which I don't think is, that's kind of really rudimentary. We're taking what we already know in our own context and placing another one on top of it.
A bit obtuse.
Yeah, really.
Interpretive, let's say that.
But what they do in Interstellar is they call it a tesseract, but really it is this structure where every single moment of his daughter's bedroom are connected together by threads, which I think is great. It kind of harkens back to the idea of string theory. You have all these strings and threads, and they're connecting each moment of his daughter's bedroom. He has access to every moment. He's trying to communicate a message back through time, and he has to pick that right moment to be able to deliver the message. And I think that's really a decent example. It's probably beyond our comprehension, but I think it's a decent example of what the fifth dimension would look like, how we would view time from the fifth dimension.
Well, we do know that civilizations on other worlds, other planets, other star systems, they have been around, some of them for billions of years or more than we, and they've had time to evolve this science, and they didn't destroy themselves in their global conflicts. By the way, I'm not sure I believe anything of what I just said. That's the popular view.
Right.
I don't know.
They may not have.
We're getting visited by something somewhere,
certainly.
And I tend to think they're ultra-terrestrials rather than extraterrestrials. There's something that's here in our sphere. Yeah,
I talk about that in the book, ultra-terrestrials. You put me onto that term years ago.
Because I love it.
What's Carl's talking about? Ultra-terrestrials. So I started doing research on it. But I mentioned that in the book that it could be. Now, some people today in the UFO UAP community have speculated that these things that we're seeing in the skies are not from another planet, that they are actually ourselves, that they're time travelers from the future. Okay.
That's in a way, well, we haven't solved the mystery of time travel, but it does make more sense, as far as in time.
Yeah.
Time encapsulation, because they don't have to travel these vast distances. Oh, but they fly into a black hole and they come out the other end and then at the other side of the galaxy.
But I think some do.
That sounds like a really grand suicide.
Yeah.
The trouble with, one of the problems with entering a black hole, besides annihilation, which is a big problem.
Oh, yeah.
Most astronauts. There's spaghettification because it's such a powerful force that, like, if an astronaut, the soles of his boots would be pulled much greater than the crown of his head, and he would be spaghettified.
Yeah.
Also,
I'm sure that's going to leave a mark.
That's got to hurt. And then there's this really kind of disturbing concept of singularity. To an outside observer, I got sucked into the black hole, becomes part of the black hole, compressed. But to, let's say, the astronaut who's being pulled into the black hole, he just stops at a certain point because it's going so fast that he's just there for some kind of obtuse eternity.
Yeah, and we have a lot of theoretical physicists that say, well, time travel is real. If we, like you were just saying, you go by a black hole and time and space are bent and works differently. We're not going near a black hole anytime soon.
Yeah,
but
we hope
what I was getting to earlier there. So the idea that some of these UFOs and UAPs are ourselves, great. But I take it a step further here in this book that our humanity, right? We have not been around all that long on this earth. The earth is 4.5 billion years old, which is still a fraction of the rest of the universe, which is almost 14 billion. When you think about this, the dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years ago. That's just over 1% of the entire lifetime of the earth. So very small percentage ago, the dinosaurs went extinct, but that's like eons to us as humans.
Right. That's so incredibly ancient times.
Yeah. The earth has about another 5 billion years left in its existence before the sun becomes a red giant and destroys the planet.
We're going to try and take advantage of that time.
Yeah. So at some point, humans aren't going to be here. Whether we annihilate ourselves, whether conditions become such on the planet that we have to move off the planet, something's going to happen where humans aren't here. And so who's to say that humans are gone from this planet, some extraterrestrial civilization finds our planet, decides it's suitable for colonization, lands here, develops their civilization, develops time travel, gets curious about the history of the planet, goes back in time and become our UFOs and UAPs. So in that sense, they are ultra terrestrials because they're here on Earth, but they're also extraterrestrials because they came from somewhere else originally.
Right. It's it could be comic book premise stuff too. Star Wars. Oh, that was please don't break that. If you touch the wrong thing, that'll start making copies and it'll run through the night and we'll be out of paper again.
Yeah,
that won't really do that. I don't think so. It hasn't done it yet. Yeah, interesting premise about that. What I mentioned before, universal entropy, and certainly global entropy. It winds down, things run out, and fuel runs out, time runs out. In about 30 million years, our atmosphere on planet Earth is going to become pretty much by our standards unbreathable, won't sustain us. And the ozone will have dissipated, the sun will be brighter, closer to us because it's starting to run out, and it will make a high radiation level in the planet, which I don't think there are going to be people around to adapt to it. I don't know. And
the Earth is going through a lot of different cycles. I mean, it was a snowball for a while, so you probably heard snowball.
Oh yeah, Earth. It was all white.
So yes, climate change is a real thing, but the Earth has been having climate change throughout its entire existence.
Say the end times. So, we never had this before. No, we've never been in a tsunami before, maybe, but. Like George Carlin, let's listen to a George Carlin routine.
Yeah,
he's not writing anything new, but yeah.
The Earth will be, save us, not save the planet.
He says we're destroying you. We're destroying the Earth. We're destroying the planet.
Yeah.
This planet, this pretty blue ball, has been through ice ages and solar flares, and plate tectonics. He said, and we think we're going to with some plastic bags and tin cans destroy the planet. And he said. No, the planet will still be here. We won't.
Save us.
The Earth isn't going anywhere. Yeah. We are.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember that skit. That was great.
That's the way he
so on point about so much.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, what's interesting, and so we'll see what you think about this, Carl.
Everything you're saying is interesting.
Okay. So over the last several years, experiments down in Antarctica. You have the Anita Project, the Ice Cube Project.
Yes.
They're studying neutrinos. Now, neutrinos are supposed to be coming from outside the planet and hitting us. That's the way they were supposed to be.
Supposedly they're so minute they can pass through us and we're just not aware of them.
Exactly. However, in their experiments down there in Antarctica, they found them not coming from space, from the Earth's core running in the opposite direction.
Oh.
And so they took these studies, crunched some numbers, and peer-reviewed paper that came out earlier this year stated that it seems we have a parallel universe running in reverse time. So now what in the world does that look like? Running in reverse time. And I also throw out there, maybe we're the ones running in reverse time and don't realize it.
Yeah, they got it right in the first try.
Yeah.
So, I've thought of that actually, and it's disturbing to me to think of the universe being that contrary. And I just can't wrap my head around it. I can't equate anything to that.
So our beginning is essentially their end. So that means our end is their beginning. So it's this constant cycle. So when we're talking about what's going to be the end of our universe when everything finally dissipates away, I believe it's going to be reborn again. So cyclical.
But I know what you mean, but one universe will be annihilated and the other will dissipate. The other universe is coming.
Yeah, it will not be the same universe again. It will be reformed.
So like 6 trillion years from now, you and I aren't going to be having the same conversation.
Nah.
You don't think that's?
I might be a little old and wrinkly by then.
Yeah, preserved well. Or something.
Yeah.
But but that's what physicists predict will be the fate of our physical universe. That eventually it will run out, and it will combustion will stop, and there will be dust. Ash to dust, and then that'll dissipate. Even the cells won't have any cohesion. The molecules won't have any cohesion. The atoms will separate all the particles, and then nothing. So very bleak.
It does.
But perspective.
Yeah, and with that, you have different camps of physicists that that believe different things of
Yeah.
what's going on with the universe. So yeah, and it seems like every day they're coming out with a new experiment, or they, or the satellites or telescopes found something out here that changes their opinion. So I don't know if they really know all of what they're talking about.
Well, that's the thing with speculative. Quantum physics is speculative.
Yeah, it's very speculative, but it's
you
what
can
we have
talk
going
about
right
it. It's
now.
like paranormal. You can talk about it and wondering who said to say you're wrong.
Yeah, well, exactly. And even with like the idea of the multiverse, a lot of people right now, especially through our pop culture, are like, well, there's all these different variations of ours, and different timelines, all this stuff. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. It goes great with science fiction films and all that. But a lot of the theoretical physicists have it really is all math. That's what it comes down to. We crunched some numbers, came out with some math, and yes, this is possible. There are different physical universes out there. We're just one of them. There are other universes that have formed up and exist out there. There's some of these, when we talk like Einstein-Rosen bridge, wormholes, portals, that we might not be connecting to us, our own universe, that we may be connecting to other physical universes out there. And some of these are developed nicely like ours. Others, they don't have enough of the correct nuclear forces, physics, chemicals, whatever, to actually be able to form. Others burn out really quick.
Laws of physics.
Yeah. And so so we are one of many physical universes out there.
Well, now let's speculate that there are beings, that there's something's out there. There are too many unidentified objects, airborne objects.
Sure.
I'm not in the camp of they are from the Pleiades and they are, watching our progress so we don't annihilate ourselves. They've been watching us since perhaps the time of the dinosaurs, and they know they can't reveal themselves except to certain chosen persons on Earth. Now, it sounds like, what it does? It fits a puzzle piece. You take a puzzle and there's a piece of sky and it almost looks like it's going to fit. It has these lobes on it. So maybe somebody will press it and you're going to fit because it fills the space. It provides an answer. I don't know if there are those answers, though. I tend to think more like from another time and terrestrial somehow. Could there be a practical application for time travel, which perhaps some beings have harnessed somehow? Because you get into the paradoxes,
right,
which are conflicts. Do you want to explain, like grandfather paradox? And
grandfather paradox. I mean, the most obvious example is Back to the Future, where Marty McFly almost ruins his own existence because he knocked his father off course from getting together with his mother. And so they call it the grandfather paradox because it was postulated that if you went back in time and did something to kill your grandfather, then your father wouldn't be born, thus you wouldn't be born, which would create a paradox because you somehow existed to go back in time. And a lot of people in the scientific community kind of laugh that off. Okay, that's science fiction, that's writing, etc. But in the 1980s, there's an interesting debate between a couple of theoretical physicists, Joe Polchinski and Kip Thorne. And they were basically talking about it's the Novikov, it's a principle. Basically, it's a principle that stated that that while time travel is theoretically possible, that it wouldn't have any effect and create paradoxes because of the math. It would zero out, and so therefore you could go back, but you couldn't change anything,
right?
That sort of thing. And so so Polchinski and Thorne are debating this issue, and Polchinski says, well, how about you have a billiard ball and you fire this billiard ball through a wormhole, but the other side of the wormhole is back behind the entrance. The exit is back behind the entrance, and where it comes out at a moment in time that it hits the billiard ball just before it enters the wormhole to begin with, thus creating a situation in which the billiard ball couldn't have gone in, but yet it did.
We assume most people know what they mean by wormhole. You take an apple and it has a wormhole that instead of going around the circumference of the apple, it finds a way through. Yeah. So it gets to the same destination, but a lot faster.
And so I kind of laugh at that because this is one that, okay, now we're going to talk about and debate it, and the theoretical physicists are going to go after it. It's like, wait a second. This is the grandfather paradox, just using a billiard ball instead of, people and, science fiction stories and all that. It's the same thing. So I always got a chuckle out of that. But yeah, I mean, that's a common paradox that we see. We mentioned somewhere in time. You'll like this. Okay, so somewhere in time, they have bootstrap paradox, which is you have an object without an origin. In that movie, it's the pocket watch, because Elise is the old woman at the very beginning of the movie, hands it to Christopher Reeve. He has no idea what's going on. She hands it to him.
He's at his book signing, and this elderly woman comes in.
Yeah, she says, "Come back to me,
Richard."
Yeah, and he's like, "I have no idea," but he keeps the pocket watch. And then a few years later, when he sees the portrait of Jane Seymour, falls in love, and is able to bring himself back to 1912, just before he gets zapped back to the present, she's holding the pocket watch. So he had handed it to her. They're kind of, playing around after they had an evening together. And, so he had given her the pocket watch that she had originally given to him. So it only cycles between the two of them. There's no origin of somebody went to go buy the pocket watch or found it on a dresser or anything like that. Only exchanges hands between those two in a never-ending loop, and a never-ending cycle. Now where you'll like this
is something I haven't thought of.
Yeah. So I had dinner with Jennifer earlier this evening. And so she and I have known each other since first grade.
Oh, yeah.
Long time. Yeah, it goes way back. And so one day we're in the library. We hadn't had much interaction together up to that point. We're in the library one day, the whole class, and I'm looking through this stack of books. And all of a sudden she comes right up next to me, plants a kiss right on my cheek. I'm like, what the heck? I'm probably blushing and all that stuff. I don't know what to say, totally flabbergasted, whatever. Okay, that was interesting. We didn't have a whole lot of interaction after that either. But of course, the incident always stuck in my head. We were in fourth grade together. We were in seventh grade together. We went out for a month in seventh grade as 12-year-olds, whatever that was. I moved away in eighth grade. And then, we kind of fell out of touch for a while, but, social media, Facebook came along, we got back in touch. And over the years, we keep in touch with how each other are doing. Maybe every once in a while, get together for dinner, that sort of thing. And I had asked her, so what was the whole kiss in the library thing? And she's like, I don't know. You just had this chubby cheek that was sitting out there, and something told me to kiss it. Okay, and so that's the story. So last year when we were in Ireland, we got together. Finally, after all these years. So now we're a couple.
Meant to be.
It was meant to be. So the next month after the trip, we come back to New England. We're touring our old hometown. We go to the elementary school where we had gone, and it's part of the college now. They use it as a performing arts center. So we're just like walking the grounds, peering through windows, that sort of thing. We go over to where the library had been. The room's there. They've changed it into like a little music room or whatever. And we're pointing at the spot where the kiss happened. And Jen starts calling out through the window, "Kiss him, kiss him." And we're like, okay, this is cute. Haha, we're laughing, having a good time. Well, as we're driving away, also we're kind of thinking about, wait a second. Is it because she had said that something told her to kiss my cheek? Was it her 48-year-old self over time reverberating through the years backwards in time to tell her 6-year-old self to kiss my cheek? So which could
have manifested as intuition, or a little, perhaps a spirit guide, a guardian angels whispering something. That's how those things are usually thought of. What
if it was herself?
Yeah.
And so therefore that would be a bootstrap paradox, because what's the origin of it? Because she could not have kissed me. If she did hear herself, she could not have kissed me without, of course, having said that, but she couldn't have gotten there without being 48 years old to be able to,
it's a very well done scene in one of the versions of teleplay of Wuthering Heights, Emily Bronte's novel, where you see the protagonist, Heathcliff, the children, Kathy and Heathcliff, are playing in the moors, They go into a cave at Penistone Crags,
Mhm.
and Kathy comes out. She's found she's looking. They're playing hide and seek, and she's looking for Heathcliff. And she comes out and she sees this man standing there, and then he just is gone.
Mm-hmm.
So she looks for a while, and then Heathcliff comes out. He's, ah! They're playing with each other. And then when you get towards the end of the story, which this is not in the novel, but it could be inferred, Heathcliff goes to that cave where he and Kathy used to play. Kathy has long since died, and he wants to join her. And he goes to that cave, and he sees little Kathy comes out.
Yeah.
So that Heathcliff, which would be the present time from the point of the observer, he is now the present, and Kathy is the past. But early on in the teleplay, Kathy is the present, and Heathcliff is that strange ghost.
Right.
And I think things like that have happened.
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
I don't think somebody always has to be dead to be a ghost. Sometimes
No, that would be more of like a time slip right there. Yeah, certainly.
Carolyn Perrin in the house in Harrisville, 1677 Round Top Road. In case you don't know where or what that is, the Conjuring House.
That story's in the book too.
Yeah. Now, there have been some debates about continuity, what really happened there and how it happened. But one thing I'm sure is true, that Carolyn Perrin, and just some of the details, it is true. Carolyn, when the Perrin family owned the house, Carolyn, the lady of the house, she came into the parlor. I think it was a dining room then, and she saw two men seated at a table. What was strange about these two men, besides the fact that she didn't know who they were, was they were dressed in vintage clothing and they were holding old-fashioned pewter steins.
Right.
And they turned, it just didn't sound like something that would be made up. They turned and looked at Carolyn Perrin, with astonishment, as if to say, who is this scantily clad, slender lass?
Yeah, and I guess the one gentleman said to the other, would you look at that?
Yeah.
As if she was the ghost.
Right.
Yeah.
Would you look at that? Something like that. And they were just like looking at her. And she looked at them the same way, and the instant was gone.
Right.
And what gives that added credit, I never thought she made it up, but what gives that added credibility to me is that I had a similar experience in that house, in that room.
Yeah.
When Corey and Jen Heinzen acquired the house the day of the closing, Elise and I went there to visit them. They wanted me to, because so much of my history was tied up in that house. And I said, oh, there's the mirror there. I bet Norma had that mirror there. And the parents, I remember the mirror was there. And just a rather large square mirror. You've looked in that mirror.
Oh, yeah.
And I told you the story.
And you tell the story on the Shadow Dimension. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to spoil it for anybody.
Yeah, go watch the Shadow Dimension.
Yeah.
It's a great moment.
Well, that was the one where I saw myself as like my younger self. Like as I looked when I first went to the house, maybe I made an impression. Maybe the house liked me. I don't know what could do that magic mirror, but it was no illusion. I was seeing myself. I'm moving. I could move.
Yeah.
But I was seeing myself as I looked in 1973.
Right.
Now we can't explain that, but it happened. I'll never forget it.
Right.
I'll never think I imagined that. So you tried to get a strange experience or an unusual experience.
Well, I had we're almost passed out upstairs. I think you were downstairs at the time because Keith was telling.
Keith was upstairs.
He was telling his story to me up there, and it was all I could do to hold myself together. When he finished his story, I'm handing him the camera.
That overtook you quickly.
Yeah.
Very suddenly. Now one could say, well, maybe you didn't have enough for breakfast, or you just became lighter. But your body.
Oh yeah.
You know that was unusual.
Yeah. It was really unusual, but something that really struck me about that house, and what I've really been speculating myself about that. I mean, it's already on some really, really interesting land, but you have that well room that's there.
Yes,
and it's open water that's there. You have the walls are constructed of limestone and they're capped with granite blocks, and so that's like a perfect little power plant. It's something that we see like in ancient Egypt and places like that all the time. And what's directly above that well room is the parlor. What's directly above that, that's Andrea's old room. That's where I almost passed out. That's where you saw the shadow smoke.
And if you picture from the cutaway section of the house, it's a straight line going up. And you've got, when water is running or seeping through walls, you've got the electrons are conveyed through that. So there's a charge.
Yeah. And
therefore you have electromagnetism. And so you're saying the house is like a battery.
Yeah, exactly. So you have all this energy that's right there to help all these different things manifest.
See, I never thought it was just like ghosts that died tragically and they don't want to leave their comfortable house. We don't know any of that really. I think there are more prosaic explanations, even when you come to theorizing like that. The house becomes a battery, and the land it's on, I don't think it had anything to do with King Philip's War. And it's buried on sacred Indian territory. Well,
the entire
that's
country
North
is
America,
sacred.
yeah. This is sacred Native American
Yeah, I mean,
territory.
really think about it. The entire world at some point was sacred to somebody.
Yeah. Right now, this place is pretty sacred to me.
Yeah.
Get away from things here. So there's a reality to this, but we can't. It's hard to pin down definites, but we know they are there.
Oh yeah,
those definites.
Absolutely.
Have you ever tried an experiment yourself in time travel?
I have. And I start off the book with that. Because I was so influenced by Somewhere in Time as a kid. When I made that move as a teenager, I was 13 years old when we moved from Massachusetts back to Ohio. And I'd spent the previous 10 years there in Massachusetts and was greatly missing my friends. So on the 1-year anniversary, I was 14, I tried lying there in bed and tried willing my consciousness.
I must say, it's a good thing we have you here, Mike, and you could have really succeeded.
I could have.
No guaranteed passage back.
Right. But I tried it. I wanted to see, what would happen if I could do that. I wasn't thinking fully in the context of, I wasn't really in the right place. I was in Ohio. I wasn't in Massachusetts to try it, which is where I should have been. But I was going to try to basically send my consciousness back, really a year and a half to be able to interact with my friends again or see them or that sort of thing. And I had gotten myself into a very, very meditative state. Now, I'm 14 years old. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I'd gotten to the point where I could feel like this undulating current, like I was on these waves, it's water, although it wasn't wet. And then I started feeling like this really electrical feel, and that spooked me. And I snapped right out of my
That's similar to what people report when they're astral traveling, intentionally or not. They feel an electric charge of tingling before the body separates and the silver cord stretches and they can take journeys out of their bodies.
Right on the verge of that. I had no idea what I was doing. It wasn't until years later when I was describing what had happened to some other people, and they told me that you were right on the verge of having an out-of-body experience.
It's kind of unsettling though, because you don't know the rules. You're doing it right.
Right.
There is an experiment. I'm trying to remember all the details. I kind of got them in my head, where a light, which electrons, photons, let's say, are projected through a pattern on a screen. And you can demonstrate
that's
the proof of time travel because they can be influenced by the mind. If you think about it going a certain way and entering through the screen and being projected onto a screen and back, and then you look and it already happened. Right. You know what I'm saying? That they can look at the screen. Wait a minute, I hadn't thought of that yet, but it's time distorted, and it actually can change time. It's one observer will see that there was that kind of, let's call it like an
the observer effects during the double slit experiment. So,
the double slit.
Yep.
The
it's really
experiment, the blind experiment, and the double slit experiment. Yep. And you can look through, and the results change. No, I know I saw that pattern. Yes, you did. I believe the person did, but it changed time. That is impossible. But then again, we are impossible.
Right.
The big conundrum of the universe is that it's here at all. You can't have something out of nothing. And some of the higher thinkers in speculative physics, they say perhaps, and even Einstein said this, certainly Stephen Hawking did, that perhaps time didn't have a beginning. Or, well, time was incepted, but what was before time? Nothing. So you can't reference it. It's like what's south of the South Pole? It just wasn't there. I just don't think that way. I can agree with it, but I can't imagine it.
Yeah, and for me, it's this constant renewal and recycling. So I liken it to the ancient alchemical symbol of the Ouroboros. So the snake eating its own tail. And there's some interesting representations of that, in which you have a lot of different alchemical symbolism within it, but you have also the dualism, the duality with the two colors and things like that within it. And so, when we think about harkening back to what we were talking about with parallel universe running reverse time, so one tract of the Ouroboros is running forward, the other tract of the Ouroboros is running in reverse, and where they meet, that tail and the head colliding there together, that's the beginning of one and the end of the other, and it restarts all over again. So for me, what was before the universe, I don't think it was nothing. I think it was just the universe in a different formation. And then what's going to come after is the universe again, reforming again, another formation of it. So, again, we won't exist, because we'll be gone, but
we can only go so
but
far
our
with this thing
consciousness,
anyway.
and here's the thing, this is our physical body, planet, all that, fine, that's going to be gone, but our consciousness, again, different dimension, different plane of existence. I think our consciousness will still be around, and maybe there'll be other vessels for us to inhabit in that next universe.
That's kind of hopeful sounding. I mean, we try as human beings, the humanocentric, we try to fit everything into a package that we can, is palatable to us. That does sound good. We are eternal.
Yeah.
Well, so is the electrostatic energy in a light bulb, but you can shut the light bulb off.
You can.
Then you can restart it, but it's not the same flow, not the same current. Oh, geez, how much time do we have? Because I think
I've got about
we got
10 minutes left,
minutes,
and Ken had a comment there about they did geological study of the property.
Yeah, I remember that, and they had the GPS, not GPS, nice. Ground penetrating radars. And
GPR,
it was fascinating. GPR. So tempting to say GPS because we rely on it. That's alien technology, by the way. And but I saw the GPS going, GPR going across the yard, and they found disruption in the soil. But Ken says, we did a geological study on the property, and there's definitely a grid of some origin that runs through it. I like the way he says grid.
Yeah.
What does that tell us? What does that indicate?
I mean, there is an Earth energy grid. It's not just frou or whatever. I mean, this is stuff that the geological surveys that are out there. Like when I talk about the Alaska Triangle, I always reference the Department of the Interior had done a survey there, a magnetic survey, and they talk about the different anomalies that are up there. The different magnetic characters that are there. It is absolutely legitimate. The idea of going around with dowsing rods. I'm going to use dowsing rods to try to communicate with spirits. I use dowsing rods to find energy. We've been doing that for thousands of years.
I find it to work.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find energy lines. You can find pipes in the ground. It's funny. I was talking with my dad one time. He doesn't believe in a lot of this stuff, but when I started talking about the rods, he's like, yeah, it's like I had heard from a buddy of mine that actually worked one time. This was when he was a younger man. He's like, I was trying to find a drain out back behind your grandparents' house. I had no idea where it was in the yard. I took a couple of copper coat hangers and went out there. And sure enough, I found it. So it's a a legitimate thing that you can find these things. So when we talk about the Earth's energy, we're really talking about the telluric currents. People commonly refer to them as ley lines. Now, the ley is the lining up of the geographical locations, like stone circles, temples.
People have done charts to show how they are connected, which
exactly
I think you can do with any geometric pattern. You can impose a geometric pattern on it.
Yeah,
but we're talking about something more than that.
Yeah, I mean they line up nicely because the ancients knew they could detect that energy. They were using their means, their methods, whether they're using rods or some other means. They knew the energy was there, and they're tapping into it for a variety of different purposes, whether it's for healing, entering altered states of consciousness, stargates and portals. We don't know. They were doing something. They're tapping into that energy. It's definitely detectable. So, but the energy they're tapping into is the telluric currents, the energy currents, and this is stuff that pyramids are built on top of and things like that. So now, where like something like this comes into play, or like triangle areas, or like Skinwalker Ranch, there's something more significant within the ground. So where the energy comes from is the core of the earth. That we have molten iron in the core that's spinning and spinning and spinning, creating a magnetic
Hasn't cooled
field.
down yet.
It hasn't cooled down yet.
I think Mars's core is pretty cool.
Probably.
Not
probably
much good for them.
But ours is still around.
Yeah.
And as it spins, it creates a magnetic field, which does a wonderful job of protecting us from the sun, the solar flares and everything. However, as it passes through the core and the mantle and the crust and all that, it interacts with different metals and minerals, and depending on what it runs into as it's rising up, will create a variety of different electromagnetic fields. So if you have a significant mineral deposit, maybe it's quartz, or maybe it's some sort of iron or other metals that has a significant deposit down there, it's going to create a significant electromagnetic field in that area, and you're going to have crazy things happen there.
And the world becomes more haunted.
Yes.
In a sense, in a broad sense. More strange stuff, more anomalies happen then. And it may be related, to use a Rhode Island redundancy, interrelated with cryptids and Bigfoot and all that. It might be, alien manifestation. We call them aliens. We're running out of that. That's getting to be an old term, a very relative term. Space aliens, and different kinds of phenomena, things that are impossible, and yet they happen.
They happen.
Well,
absolutely.
People see the coelacanth is a real thing. They've caught them, but the thylacine, the Tasmanian tiger, sometimes people see them, sometimes people photograph them, and nobody finds them really.
But you know what? I believe that
they went extinct in 1932.
Well, yeah, but some people still think there's a couple out there. But there's some of these creatures that for years and years and years people saying doesn't exist.
Yes.
But in France here over the past year, I think it was something. It was like a fox cat or whatever the heck it was. It was really long cat that kind of resembled a fox or whatever. And for years, people would say, "Oh, it doesn't really exist. People are just making it up." They actually found one. So
that's the caveat. When they get the body,
when they finally find it, they're like, "Oh yeah, I guess it exists." So why not some of these other things that people say that they see? Why
like the Jersey Devil? Is that a pterosaur?
Yeah,
from 70 million years
Loch
ago.
Ness monster, plesiosaur maybe. Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah, Mokele Mbembe in Central Africa is reported that it sounds like a brontosaurus. What they used to call a brontosaurus, a patasaurus. It sounds like a dinosaur. And yet perhaps in some other reality, these things are existing. They come back to us.
Yeah. Well, there's some people that speculate in Alaska. There's a couple of woolly mammoths still running around up there.
What a place to be! What a place you were at.
Yeah.
Alaska, nearing the northern circle. Yeah, there's talk of some remnant Neanderthals. I'm not betting on them. I'd love to meet a Neanderthal.
Yeah, never know.
If we share some Neanderthal genetics, we got to be clean about that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. They interbred. It happened, and they interbred with the Denisovans as well.
Yeah, they made me what I am today. Well, they contributed something. Yeah, and yet, no, I have heard there was one tale. It was freaky and it was wonderful about these. They were mappers, the cartographers, and they were up in the north. And he went out with some hunters, to explore the region. And I don't know if it was in the Arctic Circle or a little south of that. But he said, we trade with these people. There's guides that we trade with them, but you can't get close to them.
Yeah.
And so the people came out and they left some of their goods there, and our type of people left some of our goods for them to pick up. But this man, this cartographer, happened to have binoculars. This got to me. Oh my God, they're Neanderthals. I want to believe that. I'm suspicious about something.
I like the poster. I want to believe. So we have like a minute and a half.
Yeah, I know. You got to pull this in.
Yeah. So I saw that Sarah put one of my websites up there, connecteduniverseportal.com. I definitely appreciate that. We'd love to have more people come join us every Wednesday.
Yes. And look at this one, Android Paranormal. Do either of you believe non-human entities or demons are masters of conscious time travel or dimensional travel to accomplish the things they do?
Well, here's the thing. I wouldn't call them demons.
Some
interdimensional being.
For lack of a better term, people would say demons, just like they would say the gods, and maybe they were space travel. Or maybe
the problem is, when you say demon,
that's too ingrained into our.
It's a specific connotation.
Yes,
that's evil, nasty, nefarious, grotesque-looking sort of thing.
But certainly mysterious.
Yes, definitely.
So that's why they're suspicious. They're suspect. Well, obviously, I've been enjoying this as much as I hope you have, and our audience. I want to thank everybody for tuning into Panoramic Perspectives. In 2 weeks, I'm not sure who will be our guest. We'll get Mike back. But, you have interest in Rhode Island.
This is true.
Yeah. But we'll have a show in 2 weeks from tonight, and I'm really not sure. I have ideas. and all that. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Do subscribe to Dead Air Full Spectrum. You'll find it. Peck around for it, and become a member, become a subscriber, I should say, and it will open doors for you. Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Mike Ricksecker.
Thank you,
Where did
Mr.
just before we
Johnson.
leave? Where did we meet officially? We knew of each other. Where did
We
meet?
met in Oklahoma. We were filming for The Haunted, the Osborne House.
Yeah,
yeah.
We're on a demonic
Monster in the
case.
Closet.
It was
that
a,
was
it was
that
a
one
genuine
was that one was yes.
investigation and intercession, but it was filmed for
Yeah.
the TV show.
Right.
And they had enough of it in. You know, I was happy with that. So I was happy with
Yeah.
the investigation. Kicked the stuffings out of me, as you remember.
Oh, I remember. You were
I
down
just-
on a knee. Oof.
Yeah, I just needed some liquid in me after that. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. We shall return. And remember all the important dates we told you. I'll try to remember them too. Thanks, and we'll see you again. Bye-bye.